40 members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus broke with the majority of Democrats in voting against the debt ceiling agreement. So, look, this agreement was negotiated by President Biden and Republican leaders, House Leader Kevin McCarthy specifically, and it's got a lot of terrible things in it. Now, the legislation lifts the debt ceiling until January 2025, while enacting caps on non-military federal spending, and it passed the GOP-controlled House by a vote of 314 to 117. It had 165 Democrats joining with 149 Republicans in supporting it. And again, it was not a great piece of legislation. It's actually pretty terrible. Now, Republicans called for really devastating cuts. They didn't get that, but they did get some goodies as well. There was work requirements on aid recipients, and there was an approval that's going to help, well, Democrat Joe Manchin, as well as Republicans who supported the Mountain Valley Pipeline. That is a top priority of Manchin, as I mentioned before, who is a literal coal baron. Now, Republicans also got a provision that would codify the end of the student loan repayment pause. So now, at the end of August, people will begin to have to, and this is the millions of Americans, 40 million Americans, who are not ready, at least a significant portion of them are not ready to restart paying on their student loans, especially since there has been no decision made on the Supreme Court, in the Supreme Court, on the two cases brought before them on Biden's student loan relief plan, which would forgive $10,000 in student loans, or up to $20,000 in student loans for people, for certain borrowers. So it's heavily means tested. And one of the challenges is that it was too means tested and they didn't qualify for it. And now they're suing, and represented and propped up by right-wing groups. The other lawsuit includes, I think, 6 states, red states, that say they're going to lose out on tax revenue by this relief passing. So what a disaster that's going to be. So now, let me give you some statements from some of the Democrats that have voted against this, members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. We're going to start with Rashida Tlaib, who had the right vote. I cannot vote for a bill that guts key environmental protections and greenlights dirty fossil fuel projects for corporate polluters who are poisoning our communities, pushes our residents deeper into poverty by implementing cruel and ineffective work requirements for our low-income neighbors who rely on SNAP and TANF for food and housing. Terminates the student loan payment pause and slashes IRS funding to make it easier for the rich to cheat on their taxes. So originally Biden was calling for a lot more in IRS funding, again, to go after wealthy tax cheats. That did not happen. They actually knocked off quite a significant amount of funding on that. Tlaib added that we cannot continue to capitulate to far-right Republican Party and their extreme demands while they inflict policy violence on working-class people, gut our bedrock environmental protections, and decimate our planet. In total, 36 members of the CPC voted against the legislation. I'm going to give you their names here. That's, again, we're going to point out it was Representative Tlaib, also Representative Jayapal, Cory Bush, AOC, Mark Pocan, Summer Lee, Greg Casar, Rosa DeLauro, Jim McGovern, Barbara Lee, Dan Goldman, Jimmy Gomez, Nanette Berrigan, Jamal Bowman, Jan Schakowsky, Chuy Garcia, Delia Ramirez, Federico Wilson, Raul Grijalva, Jared Huffman, Sidney Kamlinger-Dove, Gwen Moore, Grace Meng, Ayanna Presley, Jerry Nadler, Melanie Stonsbury, Val Hoyle, Juan Vargas, Nikema Williams, Sylvia Garcia, Adriano Espelli. I'm having difficulty with some of these names, sorry. I know words, the best words. Adriano Espellia, Mark Desaunier, Jasmine Crockett, Yvette Clark, Judy Chu, and Suzanne Bonamici. That's all the members that voted against this. But you still had a majority, unfortunately, of CPC members that did vote yes, including Ilhan Omar, which this is a rare L for her. Ilhan Omar is usually really good on stuff, but in this case, not so good. And hey, fair is fair. You call out, even if you like a politician, they take a stance that you do not like, then yeah, you're more than willing to, or you should be able to call them out for it, while still doing it, in a way that is obviously respectful, like I'm doing right now. I don't agree with the vote. I think it's a bad vote. I think that this bill, remember, what I've been saying all along is that this is theater. The debt ceiling doesn't need to exist at all. There's no reason for it to exist. All it is again, we should be paying our bills. This is money that we have already spent that we are authorizing to pay. That's it. So why does this debt ceiling exist at all? It exists in order to do something like this, to do austerity, in order to be used as a political bargaining chip for people who want special pipelines, or to, again, inflict punishing austerity measures on poor people, and to get the stuff that they want to do. It doesn't need to exist. The 14th Amendment already says that, basically the debt of the United States shall not be questioned. We pay our bills. That's it. Why, presidents and, members of each party try to continue to go throughout this ridiculous process, this, again, theater, it's all political brinksmanship. That's why I never really took this seriously. We were never going to default, and it's because Congress, they have investments in the stock market. That's the first thing that would crater if the United States were to actually default on its debt. And that is the number one thing that any member of Congress that does hold investments in stock, in the stock market, would never want to do. And that's it. So again, this is just a nonsense political fight that is going to have very real consequences on, once again, the poorest, most vulnerable Americans and people who will now be subjected to, well, the pollution from, of course, the pipeline, and when it eventually bursts. So there you are. Now, that's House members. One lone Congressional Progressive Caucus member was in the Senate and spoke out, and that's, of course, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders announced ahead of the House vote that he will oppose it, calling it a bill that takes vital nutrition assistance away from women, infants and children, and seniors, while refusing to ask billionaires who've never had it so good to pay a penny more in taxes. The fact of the matter, this bill is totally unnecessary. The president has the authority and the ability to eliminate the debt ceiling today by invoking the 14th Amendment. I look forward to the day that when he exercises this authority and puts an end, once and for all, to the outrageous actions of the extreme right wing to hold our entire economy hostage in order to get what they want. Well, maybe one day a president will do this, but it'd have to be a progressive president. It's not going to be President Biden. President Biden, again, you can like you can like some of the stuff that he did, and you can dislike some of the stuff that he did. But one of the things that I'm going to point to is a promise that he had made before he got elected, and that was nothing will fundamentally change. This debt ceiling fight is now, unfortunately, part of today's politics. Biden didn't get in to be a reformer. He didn't get in to change the system. And so, no, he's not going to use the 14th Amendment, no matter what. Especially since he's been on the record of putting Social Security on the table anyway, during the negotiations of the fiscal cliff during the 2014, debt limit crisis. So, not going to be the one to do it, and might be the one, well, is the Democrat most likely to allow for some sort of cuts in these benefits. Didn't happen now, but I wouldn't rule it out in the second term.